So this is the first time that we're broadcasting from my new studio. So this is our webinar studio. We thought, while we're in lockdown, we're going to be doing a lot of different things here, and Texas is until at least December, right? So we're going to be doing a lot more content that is going to be based around this series, as well as, just doing content that's video is a lot more entertaining than just posting. So the intention is to utilize the studio that we spent so much time and effort putting together. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead now that our guest is back, introduce him. So we are thrilled to have Bradford Scott Walton with us today. Bradford is a public speaker, founding faculty member of the International Academy of Universal Self-Mastery, a contributing author to the Texas Men's Story Project on masculinity, and he's been featured on numerous podcasts, as well as presenting at the EAN Conscious Relationships Retreats. After 30 years of personal development work, Bradford began to explore the unique relationship between the masculine and feminine energetic equation and how it affects all of us individually and our ability to nourish our personal power. So welcome, Bradford.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Yeah. It's really great actually having somebody in the studio, because all of my speakers are around the country, and so he's the only one that's actually here in Texas. So it's really fun to be face to face.
Yeah,
so,
I drove in all the way from Lubbock.
Yeah.
No, I live here in Austin.
Yeah. Well, thanks for taking the time. So again, today we're going to be talking about nourishing your personal power, and for a definition that we've come up with that correlates with what we're putting out is your personal power is your inner strength, a faith in yourself, and a willingness to be co-creator of your life. It's the belief in yourself and your ability to be remarkable and accomplishing remarkable things. Personal power is more of an attitude or state of mind than an attempt to maneuver or control others. It is based on competence, vision, positivity, and service. And so you guys might be wondering what this has to do with annuities and life insurance and selling insurance in general. Well, our belief, and we totally know this, is the way that you take care of yourself and the way that you are in the world really is going to translate to the people that you're working with. And so taking care of yourself and knowing your worth and being really in tune with that is going to attract the kind of people you want to work with. And so if you nourish your personal power, you will do more business and your life will be way better. So
basically everybody
needs to do this. But anyway, so without further ado, we'll get started with my line of questioning. So today, my first question or request of you is to really share a brief history of your life in corporate America before you changed your path and began to nourish your personal power.
Yeah, so I became a designer, a graphic designer, in '89, I think is when I started. And I was self-taught. My mom's company had a need for somebody to create graphics for them, so I taught myself Illustrator and Photoshop. And I had dropped out of college, but I just felt like I had enough going to figure something out for myself. And so after doing that for her for a little bit, I talked my way into a desktop publishing job, became a production person, and then a designer, and then I ended up moving to the Bay Area, and I didn't even actually realize that the whole .com thing was going on at the time. And this was in 1997, and I got there, and interestingly, we moved out there without a place to live, without jobs lined up, just with the absolute faith and belief that there was a place waiting for us to live in, and there were people there waiting to pay me for what I did. They just hadn't met me, right?
So that's how it works.
Yeah. And so I got out there and ended up building and selling an online invitation company with some friends, and then we sold that, and then the first on the .com world. And, there were Aeron chairs sitting out on corners, and all the big parties that had happened during the massive money flow that was coming from the VCs all disappeared. And that was actually when I moved into corporate America for the first time. And I started working for Yahoo in 2000, yes, 2000, 2001.
Okay.
And that was my entrance into like full corporate America. Before that, it had been smaller business, design studios, things like that.
Sure.
And it was really interesting, and I was both shocked by how slow corporate America worked after being in design studios where everybody has to be like on the ball and clicking your mouse about as quick as you can to get things out the door. But it was what I needed to do at that time in particular, because after everything fell apart with that collapse, I had at this point a small family. I had a small child, a baby, and a wife, and I was the one who was supposed to be doing the providing on the financial front. Yeah. So, and then I spent probably a decade in Silicon Valley working for a number of different large .coms, and spent a lot of that time pretty much in existential crisis, because while I was really good at what I did and people were willing to pay me a lot of money to click my mouse and make things look pretty, I really didn't care. I had no interest in winning awards for what I did. None of that stuff. I didn't care about climbing the corporate ladder. None of that was of interest in me, for me. And the thing that was missing was a sense of purpose and value in the work that I was doing, which I just didn't find in creating graphics for the personals site at Yahoo.
Sure. Sounds pretty terrible, actually. So at that point, you just felt like your soul was being crushed, and
yeah, I mean, every day I would drive, like I had to commute an hour and a half each way to go to Yahoo.
Yeah.
And the closer I would get to the campus in my car, the more it was like watching a gas tank just deplete, right? Like
sure.
Just watch the level drop the whole way. And I would get to there and I would park in the garage, and then I would just have to sit in my car and be like, okay, all right, here we go. Okay, yep, we're gonna do it. We're gonna go.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
I completely understand that. And so, at what point did you realize that this was not for you, and you needed to really take your power back and find the way that would bring you some kind of happiness and purpose?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it was something that kept like knocking on my virtual door repeatedly, like this, there was a calling inside me. There was something that wanted to be expressed, and it would come up from time to time, and I would just like kind of lose my shit a little bit. But then I would compartmentalize that again, because I wasn't at a place where A, I knew what that next thing would be, or B, had an idea of something that would be financially, good enough to keep supporting my family.
Right.
And so I pushed that all to the side until my last job as a designer, where I got laid off, and it was at that time it wasn't at that moment. It was about 3 months later when I had an interview for a contract job. It was just gonna be a couple of weeks, but it was like, I don't know, it was like 20 or something like that. right? And I was
Yeah.
like, okay, that sounds cool. I can do like 10 grand a week.
Yeah.
Super down with that.
Yeah.
And I went in for the interview, and everything that could go wrong went wrong. I spilled an entire glass of water on the conference table.
Please don't do that here.
Oh,
Everything's
okay.
new.
Okay. I couldn't get my laptop to connect to the projector. A job that I had been doing for the last easy 15 years. I couldn't find any of the words, or, any of the lingo of that job. Nothing was coming together. And I left that place, and I was driving. Clearly, I was not going to get that gig.
Right.
And I was driving home, just like completely flummoxed and just kind of in a state of shock a little bit, because it was by far the worst interview of my life. I had never experienced anything like that. And I was driving along, and I just basically was like, hey, sky homies, the universe, whoever, what was that all about? Why? What was that all about? And the answer that I received was, you're done here. Don't try to get any more jobs in this world. This is not for you any longer. There are other things for you to do. Go do them. And like, there were plenty of moments leading up to it, but when that happened, I was like, wow, okay, yeah. So that's pretty much,
Yeah. So really, you were able to follow your intuition and guided you to finding this power, to really coming into that.
Yeah. I finally had to, I mean, I was finally basically forced to stop suppressing the desire within me to do something that has purpose.
Yeah. And I think, I know the entire series that we've created is about making sure that you're living your purpose and really doing what it is that makes you happy, and making sure that this industry is really what you want to be doing, and that you're really, really interested in helping the people. So I love that. So, okay, so tell me about your shift from corporate world to a more heart-centered way of being in the business world. Like, you had to still, obviously be in the business world to some extent, right?
Sure. And I mean, I honestly, moving through my career, even though I didn't, I wasn't like, it was something I was good at, but it wasn't really like my heart's desire. I really made a point to bring some heart and some levity to the people that I worked with, and the teams that I led, and all that stuff, because it was very clear to me that working in a cubicle all day is super terrible.
Yeah.
And it just kind of like, I could see it in the people around me. So I made a point of, making a joke here and there in meetings and things, just to kind of like take the pressure off a little bit.
Sure.
It was particularly in Silicon Valley in that time, and when all these companies were trying to rebuild from that collapse, there was a lot of pressure, and there was a lot of everybody was very serious about this, and so the timelines on projects were really screwed down tight and everything. And I just was like, guys, if this project doesn't launch exactly on time, it's not going to be the end of the world. It's not going to kill the company. The internet isn't going to shut down. Everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
But the thing was that as I was on my way out of that career, I realized that I had to find my way to my personal power for this next part, for this new venture. And it required me to look at a bunch of stuff and do some things that weren't like, I started bartending, which honestly was one of the best choices that I made after ending my career as a designer, because either I had either been working from home or working in a cubicle for months.
Yeah.
And to completely shift that and go into a job where I'm now not doing anything with the computer other than punching in drink orders,
Sure.
right? And I'm just engaging with people.
Yeah.
Was just that opened up a lot of stuff for me internally, and really helped with the transition into understanding what the next thing was.
Sure. Yeah, and that's one thing we get to do all the time in this industry is being in communication with people and helping people, And so interfacing with people is so important. It is absolutely. Like being isolated is not good for your soul.
Yeah.
So
well, and that's one of the things that a lot of people are struggling with right now with the whole coronavirus thing is it has really limited and significantly changed the level of human contact, right? Because
right.
even if you get on Zoom calls with your friends, or have tea parties or whatever, like people are doing a lot of fun, different, inventive things, but seeing somebody on a screen is nowhere near the same as being in person and
Sure.
being able to actually feel that person
right.
without touching.
That's why I had you here. Not that I want to touch you, but but having you in this, in this location and interacting, I feel like it gives another layer or depth to what we're putting out, what
Sure.
we're doing for the people. So yeah, this was all for you guys. So all right, so what would you say your number one challenge has been in changing from the corporate paradigm to a heart-centered way of thinking?
Well, I mean, for me, what I've gone into is something that can be a little bit challenging for people to understand or to accept, and I'm trying to push some boundaries in that area. So one of my biggest challenges was overcoming the fear that I had around how I would be received and how this would work. If I was actually, is what I'm doing even right?
Sure.
Can I trust this?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There's so many questions around that. And so, it basically took kind of some baby steps of like testing out the waters with things that weren't quite as edgy, and allowed me to get a little bit of feedback and see how this was going. And so
Yeah.
it helped build my confidence.
Sure.
Right. And to keep like, okay, well, so this works here. What if we go right here?
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
let's just push it a little bit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So pushing the envelope. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of fear behind that. I mean, in what we're creating here is pushing the envelope and being different than everybody else. Nobody else in this industry is talking about these things. Nobody else has broached these subjects, and it isn't, the norm. And I've taken a huge risk and put a lot of money and time into putting this out there, and I'm doing it for the people. I am doing it because they need it. And now a lot of them don't know they need it, but eventually they will.
Right.
And so it's one of those things that you're like, okay, I know deep in my heart what I'm doing is right, and it's not the norm. And so it's going to take a minute for everybody to catch on and really let it sink in and resonate, and it's one of those things like they're early adopters to things. And so we've got some early adopters that have been joining us throughout these series, which is amazing. And I have, some fans that really love what we're doing, and that's all that matters. I don't need everybody to love it yet, but they will. So It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I mean, you know, like with the work that I do, I understand that it is not actually important for me to convert everyone to the awareness that I have.
Sure.
It's the the biggest thing to get to is a tipping point,
Right.
right? Which allows things to shift dramatically.
Yep.
It doesn't require everyone to be on board at first.
Yep. Yep. So we are the trendsetters. So what does nourishing your personal power really mean to you? Maybe share an example of how you do this in your business or life today.
You know, gosh, I don't know. It like for me, I I have to I practice a couple of things. One is really trying to come back to awareness in the moment and what exactly how I'm feeling, what's actually happening,
Sure.
and trying to have an understanding of uh, what I want next, right? Because without awareness, you've not a choice,
Sure.
and that's really, you know, for me, that's 97% of the root on any transformation that
Sure.
happens. Um, so that to me, and just like I this is something that for me, I've been in continual process for a long time now, and it's something that I'm always questioning what's happening within me. How do I make this better? Does this not feel good? Do I like the way this feels? All of that
Right.
stuff. And awareness is something
Yeah.
that it can come in a lightning bolt, but it can also come in little increments of just being like,
Yeah.
right? So I find that is really gives me a deeper sense of who I am and where I'm at and what I want, which is really those three questions are the ones that really, to me, stoke that sense of personal power. Because now I have like I've got my own personal evidence, right, of who I am and where
Yeah.
I'm going, and so it gives me a solid foundation that continues to build.
Sure. And this is something that is unique to you and your experience, but everybody has the ability to have that awareness.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And also not having fear around change, you know?
Yeah.
So you could be aware of something, but you may not change it. And and that's like the worst. So,
yeah. Well, and you know, something that I came into the awareness of a few years back was that I kept putting a lot of judgment on myself around things that I did or thought or said.
Sure.
And I consciously chose to look at my life like an experiment. And the only test for anything in my life, whether it was something I was putting in my mouth or putting on my body or thinking or any experience,
Sure.
was how it felt. And whether I liked the way it felt or if I didn't like the way it felt.
Sure.
Taking away an idea of it being good or bad or right or wrong, so that I was then aware of how I felt about it, and then I got to choose whether I continued to do that thing or not.
Right.
And sometimes I would be aware of something that I didn't really like the way it felt, but I chose to do it anyway, right? And I knew, but because I knew that I was choosing it and I knew what this was, I knew that I could continue to be aware of it and make a different choice whenever I was ready to. Which I think is a really powerful place to live your life from, particularly because that way of being, that way of operating really removes all the shame and guilt around anything that's happening in your world.
Right. Yeah. I can relate to that pretty much around cake.
Cake?
So, yeah.
The band?
Yeah, totally, totally. Yeah, because that is something going into your ear. You know, that listening to music.
Oh,
Like
absolutely.
music is a huge thing. Like
Of course.
watching things on TV. Like what you choose to view and listen to is a big part of that awareness that, a lot of people don't really realize how it impacts them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, energy is the language of the universe.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
And like you can't get a whole lot more vibrational than music.
Right.
And so it clearly has
Yeah.
major impact. I mean, why, that's why they're like, hey, pregnant ladies, put headphones on your belly and play classical music, play
Right.
Mozart, right?
Right.
Why do you think that is? Not
Yeah.
not because they're trying to make composers,
Maybe.
or maybe just posers.
Maybe. So, anyways, okay, so can you explain a situation when you felt like you were powerless? How did you come back into your personal power in that situation?
Yeah, well, I mean, gosh, after my divorce, I was just a mess, real mess, and I really had I was super shook by it. My heart was a mess. That coincided also with the end of my career as a designer. Same year, I got laid off from my last job. I got divorced, and I basically had to recreate it. And I mean, there's a lot of power in that, but not at first.
Yeah.
It's
sure.
very overwhelming.
Yeah.
And there are just, I mean, when you have to choose everything all over again, from what's in your cupboard to what sheets you're going to sleep on, to everything.
Right. Yeah.
It's a really challenging place to be, and man, I lost probably like 20 pounds. The woman who made the tacos in the taco truck next to my place would occasionally slide an extra taco into my order.
Well, that's love.
Yeah. I mean, it's classic Latina mom.
Just like you need some more weight on you.
Just like,
yeah,
we got to fatten you up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that was a really super challenging time. That it was a really big hit, and it took so much work.
Yeah.
To process all of that and come into a new place, right?
Yeah.
Into a new understanding of who I am and what I'm here to do, and is very challenging.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of people that are watching can relate to that. Unfortunately, what is it, like a 50% or even higher divorce rate? So that surely is impacting the people that we're working with, and they're dealing with these things. And not only are they dealing with these things, but they're trying to run their business and live their life dealing with these things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like life happens, but you can't stop doing what you need to do.
Yeah.
So,
well, and that is, that the emotional component of our world has the biggest impact on the rest of how we operate.
Yeah.
In the world.
Definitely.
Right. In relationship, in business, in our car when we're driving.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes that can be
a little bit road ragey.
Yeah.
So what is a piece of advice you can share with others about the importance of nourishing your personal power?
It's, really, I don't think that there's anything more important that you can do for yourself than coming into an awareness and really acceptance of yourself and who you are, so that you can then really operate from a place of wholeness or closer to wholeness.
Right.
Something where you're not going around injured, feeling because that affects every, like we were saying, it affects every aspect of your life.
Sure.
And so figuring out ways, finding teachers or coaches or healers or
Books.
books, meditations, all kinds of stuff, blog posts, anything you can get your hands on, whatever, and implementing strategies
Sure.
in your world for finding new levels of awareness, for finding new levels of acceptance, for really coming into a sense of who you are, is not only the most important thing you can do for yourself, but it's the most important thing you can do for anyone in your sphere and really actually in the world.
Yeah.
As a whole.
I get that. I mean, if you're coming from a place of a broken heart and it was caused because of a certain situation, you tend to take that out on other people.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And like,
well, and because we're all energetic beings, everyone on the planet has no option but to respond to you based on where your energy is at that time.
Yeah.
Right? They just,
yeah.
they're going to most likely, I mean, there are some people who have done enough work to the point where they can recognize it but not react to it, right?
Totally.
And actually respond as opposed to react.
Yeah.
But in general, people are just going to be like, "Oh, wow, you suck."
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And not think, "Oh, I wonder what happened to them to make them be that way today." Did they just find out they have cancer? Did their grandma just die?
Right.
Like, most people are going to react in a way that's negative instead of having compassion and, just stepping back for a minute and saying, that didn't have anything to do with me.
Yeah.
That's something they're dealing with,
right.
Yeah.
But it's also tough. It's tough to do that because you can feel the thing that's going on with them,
totally.
which causes you then to feel a certain thing about that thing that's going on over there, right? It takes a lot of effort.
Practice.
And practice.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah, it's not one of those things like you're gonna read a blog or a book and then you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so aware, and then I've changed everything.
Yeah.
No, it's like,
gosh,
you have to put so much work into it.
It would be so super cool if there was just a collection
like a
of switches or something that you could flip, and it would be like, how do I want to know? It would be really cool if I understood everything. Just
then we wouldn't be having a human experience. That we would be robots.
Yes.
Which is what we're trying to help people not be. Right.
Good point.
Right.
Good point. I like that. Yeah.
So, so how has the pandemic changed the way you operate in the world, and more specifically in business?
Well, this pandemic is first of all super annoying.
You don't say.
No, really. Well, but and the thing is like, for me, you've got like this super afraid aggro mask people on one end.
Yeah.
You've got the conspiracy theorists that have sort of their own kind of fear involved in it as well, but like from a completely different angle on the other end.
Right.
And I feel like the truth of the whole thing is sort of swimming around in the middle somewhere. But I don't know. Overall, I'm not afraid of it. I'm not afraid of this virus. I'm not afraid of this situation. Do I wear a mask to go into a store? Yes. Do I?
It is sort of required by almost all places anyway.
Yeah.
They have like a post.
I kind of want to get things at stores occasionally.
Right.
So I feel like if I put on a mask for 5 minutes, it's not that big a deal. Do I want to? No. Do I think that it's totally necessary? Questionable.
Sure.
But whatever.
Yeah.
but then like in business, you know, some of the stuff some of my work is virtual, but I also used to do, you know, more in-person sessions, whether they were mentoring sessions or energetic sessions. You know, I also used to do art therapy session for women around body image, and those things aren't really possible right now.
Sure.
And it's, you know, for me personally, it's a bummer. I enjoy so much the interaction with people and being able to see facial expressions that are totally covered by a mask,
Right.
right? All the little micro expressions that tell such a big story about what's actually happening inside someone. Being able to smile at somebody walking down an aisle,
Right.
things like that.
Yeah.
A few years ago, I came across an article that showed that they had scientifically proven that anytime you perform an act of kindness or generosity, something that helps like kind of light up another person, it travels out 6 people deep, 6 levels from that person, right? And I was out running some errands, and you know, I like to have a good time when I'm in the world. I try not to take a whole lot of things any more seriously than they absolutely need to be.
Sure.
And so I noticed that I had made quite a few people smile, either by smiling at them or saying something, you know, funny or whatever.
Yeah.
And I decided to backtrack and count how many of those interactions I had had to that point, and then keep going for the rest of the day. And then by the end of the day, I had that level of positive interaction with 31 different people. And so for that to go out 6 levels deep with all of those people, and it just keeps spreading out, right? And that's, for me, that's part of what is really challenging right now in this situation, is that we're not the what was normally this continuous flow
Yeah.
of that positivity, that really good feeling energy has been shut down so much because we don't have that random, just like, oh wow, I see you, you feel really good to me, and I don't even have to say anything to you, but I'm going to smile at you, and
Yeah.
that's going to feel really good.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be able to take that with me, and they're going to be able to take that with them.
Right.
And keep going. And yeah, and I just I miss that.
Yeah.
Very much.
Yeah, I definitely have had the same experience. But I think that we're going to see some good come of this. We just need to get through it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we are trying to create some positivity out there regardless of our masks, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, just because you can't be with some people doesn't mean you shouldn't do good things.
Right.
Right.
Totally.
Yeah. And since everything is energy, and energy doesn't really care. I call energy the honey badger of the universe, because it doesn't care about time or space.
Yeah.
It's just yeah, I don't know. I mean, you can make a difference in somebody's life without being there. And you can make a difference in somebody's life without actually seeing, FaceTiming or calling or texting.
Yeah.
You can actually feel that. You can feel a person at a distance.
Yeah.
And send love to people and connect with people. And of course, you know, FaceTiming and texting and all of the modern technological ways that we have of connecting help with that as well. But yeah, it's just it's really important.
Yeah. It is. Interaction. All right. So what does your daily practice look like? For example, like what structures have you put in place to center and stay centered and focused?
Well, I do. Currently, I'm actually doing a morning meditation that's led by somebody else, Christoph Melchizedek.
Oh, I love him.
Yes. And his meditation is very similar to something that I developed for myself, and it's really it's about, I mean, both of us, what we do in these meditations is take a trip through the chakras and um, really try to like, for me, it's really trying to feel the presence of that energy, get a sense of where it's at, and then try to amplify that if that's necessary.
Sure.
Um, so that when that is done, and when I'm doing his meditation, it's usually in bed with headphones on, noise canceling headphones, so
sure.
everything's just, I'm just in that. When I do mine, it's a moving meditation where I normally do that outside with my feet on the earth, so that I can really connect to that. And then I actually move through a series of postures for that. But that for me is super important. It really sets a tone for how I go into the day. Sometimes I do a little journaling, sometimes I don't. But that to me is the biggest piece. And then, the other part is like what I mentioned before, of this continuing to try to pull myself into awareness of the moment.
Yeah.
And even with as much practice as I have in doing that, because I've been doing it for a while, I know, and we all do this. We all have our programs that we run. We all get kind of on autopilot as to whatever the task is that needs to be done, or whatever our priorities sets are. Oh my god! Oh my god!
Situation.
And when we get into those programs, it's difficult to even realize that we're running that. Right. Because it's so natural, it's so ingrained that it's difficult to even realize we're in a particular group.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I love that you brought up the fact that you do a meditation to start your day, because that's the beginning of our series, was about the importance of being grounded. And I meditate every day, sometimes multiple times a day. Depending on what's happened. I might have a conversation with somebody that really triggered me, and I have to go calm myself down before I can talk to other people, because I don't want to take that energy into that next call. I don't want to take that out on someone else. And it's
I mean, that's really important, and that speaks to your awareness of your current state. Right. And I mean, it's easier to be in awareness of what your current state is when it gets, triggered, or like, I mean, when you're on, kind of like the polarized ends of the emotional spectrum, it's a lot easier to recognize that than it is kind of in that middle area where it's just, things are just moving along.
Yeah, totally agree. And understanding what causes you to be triggered.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the whole point is being aware of it and working through it and not allowing it to trigger you, but it takes a lot of work. It's not something that you're like, oh, I'm aware of this and now it's gone. It's like, no, now you got to work through it and figure out how to remove it.
Yeah. Well, and that's, when like the example that I said earlier about awareness being 97% of any transformational journey, right? And it doesn't matter whether it's a big life lesson or it's something that is, just a single trigger around a particular thing based on one event that happened in your past, or whatever that thing is. Until you come to that point of awareness and actually put yourself at choice, and then make your choice to either change it or accept it and continue on with it. Everything before that is all the pain that you've been experiencing to that point, that you've been carrying with you. And now you get to a point of awareness, and if you choose to do something different and feel differently about that, then you have the last 3% to go of the transformation. But that requires effort and dedication and just continued
awareness. Yeah.
Coming back to it over and over again.
Yeah, totally. Oh, I've experienced that a lot.
Yeah, it feels super terrible sometimes.
It does.
Yeah.
But then when you like overcome it, it's like such an accomplishment, and it feels so good.
Yeah.
So
Makes you want to put on like a red cape.
Oh yeah,
Arms
totally. Yeah. So what is your vision and hope for fellow business owners and people in the insurance and financial industry?
You know, my hope is that with the way that things have slowed down, that this has created an opportunity for people to be more aware of where they are now, to be able to spend more time contemplating what is happening really internally, so that they can come to a new place internally that allows them to operate in a way that is considerate and compassionate and really not our society places so much pressure on the doing and the having of things,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That it's a bigger challenge to get into the being and feeling
Right.
part. But the being and the feeling is the part that controls how the doing and the having both operate and feel.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we're at a very important place in our history right now. We have an unprecedented opportunity to really get into the being and feeling part, so that the doing and the having feels better as well.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that the way you do things is better. The way you feel while you're doing those things is better.
Yeah.
And then the way you feel after you've done those things is better.
Yeah.
Right? And the things that you get out of doing those things, the things that you acquire feel better, because it's not a chase anymore.
Yeah.
It's not trying to get to a certain level. Maybe you have certain goals, and that's totally fine. This world still operates in a capitalist, like we all understand how the structures work, right? So it's not like that game has gone away, but you can absolutely change the way that feels, not only for you, but for your clients as well, because they're experiencing the same thing. And a lot of those clients have a lot of added fear right now, so much more fear than they had before. And particularly, when you're dealing with things around insurance, when you're dealing with, like disability and long-term care and all of these things, where it's those are considerations that are not like, how to celebrate.
It's not lighthearted.
Yeah, it's not like, hey, I want
to get this insurance.
I want to buy an insurance package because I'm gonna celebrate my 40th birthday in Ibiza. Like that's
There's
totally
some
different.
Serious thought behind it.
Yeah.
And you have to consider some things that may not feel real great to think about.
Yeah, they're uncomfortable for a lot of people.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is like, we're in this industry, so for us it's not as uncomfortable. It's like second nature.
Sure.
But everybody else that we're talking to, that's not where they're at.
Yeah.
It is a thing that they've got to warm up to the idea.
Yeah. And that's why making those shifts within you to be able to actually pay attention to how someone else is feeling.
Yeah.
To actually be able to feel how someone else is feeling is going to provide so much information about how you can interact with them and how you can best support them and serve them in what they're trying to do to take care of themselves and others in their world.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so I am down to my last question. What is the gift you have for the attendees? Can you tell us about it?
Sure. So all of my work is around the masculine and feminine energetic equation. And as I was saying before, it's basically how to have the doing and having feel better because the being and feeling feels better.
Sure.
And so the being and feeling is the feminine aspect, and the doing and having is the masculine aspect. I recorded a guided meditation, which I have available on my website, and this meditation takes you to the point where you first understood how this particular world works and how it's the doing and having is way more important than the being and feeling. And in the moment that you come to that realization, you create the story for yourself about who you're going to have to be and how you're going to have to change things to fit into a world that doesn't allow you to just be the same fully expressed person that you were before that moment.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, I don't know the audience if they are fully aware, but masculine and feminine is, it's not a gender.
Right. No, it's an these are, and I'm referring to those energetically.
Yeah.
It's not a gender thing. It's actually the masculine and feminine energetic equation is a layer underneath gender expression. Right. They can influence and inform what the gender expression is like, but they're separate.
Yeah. Thanks for pointing that out.
Sure.
I was aware, but I wanted to make sure the audience was aware. So, all right. Well, we only have about 5 minutes left, and as far as questions go, do you believe someone could be too powerful? And how do you balance and nourish your power to not become arrogant or self-absorbed?
I think that the only way that someone can be termed or deemed too powerful is if their ego is a problem in that equation, right? Because
that doesn't exist in our industry.
Oh, thank God. Okay, great. Well, then we can just skip to the next question because, yeah, no, I think that ego is the determining factor in that, right? You can, because and it honestly, it doesn't matter whether you feel powerless or super powerful. The ego is going to be a problem until you make it not a problem. Right.
Yeah.
And the reason the ego gets all tripped out and tripped up and all in a bundle about itself is because the being feeling side is not in a place that actually feels secure.
Right. Yeah.
If the being feeling part of you feels secure, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You're not competing with anybody. So the ego doesn't have a job to do.
You mean competition creates ego?
Or the other way around.
Or ego creates competition?
Maybe.
Because I feel like
it's just a big cyclical dance between the two.
Yeah. It's interesting you brought that up though, because a lot of the way people are taught in this industry to sell is based on competition.
Right.
And beating your competition.
Yeah.
Because there's not enough business for everybody.
Well, of course not. Because there are only 8 billion people on the planet.
Right.
So if you've already got like 4 billion of them, what's left for anybody else?
It's only half.
That's weird.
It's terrible. All right. Well, thank you for joining us today. We can go into a lot more, but we're going to stop here. But yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, and I know that the audience has appreciated what you brought to the table today. So I want to thank everybody for joining us. We really hope that you found this to be of value. Like I said, we're going to send out an email with a copy of it, so please share it with your colleagues and friends, rewatch it, get some more nuggets of information that you may have missed. We're going to include Bradford's link to his meditation, and I'll also include a copy of the guide. If you haven't seen it, you will definitely get some really great stuff out of it. we have in the back of the guide resources. So links to blog posts, articles, books, meditations, talks, courses, like a whole bunch of different things that you can utilize in your, in your daily life, ways to continue working in the direction that you want to go in. And then on the 22nd of September, we'll be having our next webinar, and that will be, the topic we're going to be going over is leading with your heart. So I hope you guys will be able to join us and again, share the invitation with your friends and colleagues. In the meantime, definitely go to the website, check out our blog. We've got all of the guides posted there and a lot more information than just the guides. As well, you can follow us at the Annuity Consultants on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and on Instagram. We're actually on Instagram finally, so that's super fun. Anyways, thanks so much. I will see you on September 22nd. Until then, have a great day. Bye. Bye.